Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Shivani Singh. Pakistan and Afghanistan are witnessing a renewed escalation in a conflict that has been simmering since late last year, with both sides trading accusations over cross-border militancy and security threats. The latest flashpoint came today, when Pakistan carried out airstrikes in Afghanistan's Khost, Kunar and Paktika provinces. Now, Taliban authorities are saying that at least 19 people, including 11 children, were killed and 14 others were injured in the strikes. Pakistan, however, says that it targeted militant hideouts and killed 26 militants. Now, the two neighbors have been locked in a cycle of violence since October, with Pakistan accusing the Taliban-led government in Kabul of harboring TTP, responsible for attacks on its soil. The Taliban has repeatedly denied the allegations, insisting that Pakistan's security challenges are an internal matter. The conflict intensified earlier this year as well, prompting Islamabad to declare it was in open war with Kabul before a China-backed ceasefire was reached in March. Now, despite that truce, cross-border attacks have continued, raising fears of a broader confrontation. A United Nations report last month estimated that at least 372 Afghan civilians have died and 397 have been wounded in the conflict in the first 3 months of this year alone. The strikes on Wednesday come on the heels of a suspected Pakistani Taliban militant attack on a security checkpoint in the Hasan Khel area of northwestern Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which borders Afghanistan. Now, the latest strikes highlight the fragile security situation along the Durand line, where tit-for-tat attacks have become increasingly common. With both sides digging in on their positions and civilian casualties continuing to mount, fears are now growing that the conflict could escalate further despite previous attempts at diplomatic de-escalation. To discuss this further, joining us on this broadcast are our panelists, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, who's a senior defense expert, Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Ali Ashraf Ratta, who's live from Pakistan, and Malika Pandey, a foreign affairs expert. Thank you so much to all, and thank you for taking out your time to speak to NewsX. Let me start off this discussion with Ambassador Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, I want to understand from your perspective. We've been seeing these clashes, these cross-border clashes, ever since the Taliban, came to power in 2021. And Pakistan was expecting a friend. It spent decades nurturing that relationship with the Taliban. However, over the years, it's witnessed that that's not the case. They are still facing these cross-border attacks. We are seeing constant airstrikes that are being conducted by Pakistan, and then Afghanistan is in fact retaliating. I want to understand from your perspective, Beijing came in March, brokered a ceasefire. Do you believe that that is something that will work for both these nations, since we are seeing this simmering since many years, ma'am?
Well, actually, Shivani, and thank you for having me on your show. When the Taliban came to power, the Pakistani establishment were jubilant, as you pointed out, and they said that they have created Afghanistan as a strategic space to be used against India. History is very ironical, and the wheel has turned 180 degrees. That today you are in a situation where India is defending Afghanistan in the UN Security Council, etc., for attacks, unjustified attacks on it by Pakistan, and the strategic space that Pakistan thought that it had created in Afghanistan against India seems to have turned to become strategic space which the Afghans are using against the Pakistanis. The reason is historical. I don't know if you read the book called The Durand Line by an ambassador colleague, friend of mine, Rajiv Dogra, who said that the Durand Line is described by every Afghan as a dagger in the Afghan heart. And why did he say so? because it is like many other borders which the Brits created wherever they went. It is a line that has never been accepted on the Afghan side, and it doesn't matter what kind of Afghan it is, whether it's a Taliban Afghan, or it's a pro-American Afghan, or it's a westernized Afghan, or it's an Afghan woman who doesn't wear a hijab. It doesn't matter. It's not accepted by the Afghans. Therefore, this line needs to be discussed and negotiated between the two principal players, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Pakistan is not willing to do so. Moreover, as you rightly pointed out, there are a large number of aggrieved Afghans or Pakistanis of Afghan origin, etc., who are entrenched in this area and who are utilizing this opportunity of attacking the Pakistani army, etc. Because unfortunately, the Pakistani army and the present Pakistani government has not tried to win over the hearts of the people who live there. If they want them to consider themselves to be part of Pakistan, then they have to give them development aid, give them the opportunity to articulate their grievances, etc. Whatever is done in a civilian democracy. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, it's only 1/4 civilian democracy and 3/4 military dictatorship, and that's the way it has been from the time of Zia. But this is a particularly bad situation where you have a field marshal who's given more importance than the civilian prime minister of Pakistan, even by President Trump. So naturally, in such a situation, there is going to be a lot of unrest. And as a diplomat who is also a student of history, I always point out that if there are two civilizations that have never been conquered and colonized, one is the Persian civilization, which Iran is demonstrating, and the other is Afghanistan. India has been colonized, China has been colonized, Egypt has been colonized, but neither Afghanistan nor Persia. And these are lessons of history which people must remember when they go into such areas and take them on.
Absolutely.
These are not people. Trump had said, by tomorrow, 5,000 year civilization, that is Iran, will be destroyed. What happened? Nothing happened. So it's time, I think, that the Pakistani government sit down with the Taliban and try to work things out. And in the meantime, to try to deny India to send its relief material or medicines through Pakistan to Afghanistan, like we used to do earlier, is also not popular in Afghanistan, because they desperately need all those medicines, food supplies, humanitarian aid, etc., which we are now obliged to go through the long route and send it to Afghanistan through Iran. So these are things that need to be worked out among the larger geopolitics.
Absolutely, ma'am. In fact, let me also rope in General Dwivedi. General Dwivedi, I want to understand from your perspective, why do you think Pakistan is doing this? We have been speaking about a lot of problems that Pakistan is facing internally, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in POJK, internally as well, even in Islamabad and Karachi. And now it wants to, China had come in, it brokered a ceasefire. Why does it keep, striking apparent militant hideouts in the border areas in Afghanistan and then stir up trouble again?
Well, Shivani, there are two issues before I come to why Pakistan is doing what it is doing. It's important to understand the fault lines. There are deep fault lines, both historical and geographical. And to top it all, of course, the attitude of Pakistan. Of course, Northern Line has been always contested, but let's come closer. When the Taliban took, they came back to power in 2021. Pakistan was jubilant, they were celebrating, because they thought that they have got now compliant Western neighbor, they will be stable Durand line, and they will be able to concentrate or focus on the Eastern theatre. But that didn't work out, and all plans went for a 6. In fact, their ISI chief, Faiz Hamid, was the first to land in Afghanistan actually, and possibly trying to convey a message that this is going to be a sort of a vassal state of Pakistan. Now, what has happened exactly, why Pakistan is doing? See, Pakistan hybrid government, or so-called hybrid government, is primarily controlled by the army. army controls not only foreign policy, defense policy, now even the economic policies. In fact, Asim Munir, Field Marshal, is more like a corporate, CEO working for Pakistan. And since 2021, what has happened is that Taliban did not oblige Pakistan to be a compliant state. And they wanted to have their own sovereignty, own identity, and Pakistan was not prepared for that. And Pakistan has always treated, Afghanistan as a subsidiary or as someone they can always call the shots or they can have their way. Now, the two, three things why they are important. Firstly, Pakistan policy is policy of exporting terrorism, fighting with proxies, and that is their national policy. And they have been instigating their own groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed against the Taliban, because Pakistan army doesn't have the capability of fighting Taliban. They have been given a bloody nose number of times. Now Pakistan is using the air force, air power, aerial assets because Taliban doesn't have the air force. They only have the ground forces, which they are definitely have an edge. Now Pakistan is doing this primarily, firstly, to have an upper hand on Taliban. And of course, they are blaming that TTP, Tariq-e-Taliban Pakistan, is being sheltered in Afghanistan. That is being contested. But the point is, Shivani, that it's not only against Afghanistan. What is happening in Balochistan? Balochistan Liberation Army is taking Pakistani every day. What's happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir? They are having a problem there. So the fundamental problem is Pakistan primarily is Punjab. They do not treat any other minority states as at par with their central, where the power flows out, that's Punjab. And the second point is the policies of Pakistan, especially the Pakistan army, because they have been using a very heavy-handed approach against all the minorities. So to come back to your question, why Pakistan is doing this? Primarily Pakistan policy is exporting terrorism, using proxies. This is governed by the Pakistan army, and their basic aim is to have compliant Taliban or Afghanistan, which is not going to work out. So therefore, whether Chinese try it out or whether any other Middle Eastern state try it out, this ceasefire or peace is not going to come about until Pakistan changes its basic policy. Shivani.
Okay. I want to also rope in fact, Ali Rata, who's joining us live from Pakistan. Sir, I want to understand what is the ground situation, because Pakistan seems to always, follow this narrative that it's targeting militant hideouts in the border regions, and they claim to kill 26 militants, say for example, in this particular airstrike. But on the Taliban front, on the ground, there are reports that state that civilians are dying. We have apart from the Afghanistan government, if we do not want to, look at their narrative, there is the United Nations report, which is stating that over 400 civilians have already died because of these cross-border clashes since the start of this year, sir.
Thank you for inviting. Actually, I would ask a question to all my panelists. Why Pakistan will ask this, why Pakistan is raising this point, we are just stating their hideouts. Why should we kill civilians in Afghanistan? Is there any objective behind that? I don't think so. There is any military or civilian objective behind that. So it's simple. In last 20 years, Pakistan is the biggest victim of this terrorism in the world. So
Mr. Rata, I believe the biggest victim will be India.
Civilians in this
Mr.
terrorism.
Rata, I hate to interrupt you, but India seems to be the biggest victim of terrorism. We have been seeing Pakistan, in fact, support such terror proxies. Taliban was supported by Pakistan before it seized power in Afghanistan in 2021, sir. And now that it's turned its tail, you guys are, blaming them.
I think it's my turn to speak, and
absolutely,
allow me,
sir.
If it's my time, to allow me to establish my point of view, rather you put your narrative in my mouth.
All right.
Please. Actually, how you will gauge the biggest, how you will calculate that through the casualties, civilian casualties, how much India lost for that. Pakistan lost almost 100,000 people, civilian people, in last 20 years in this terrorism. So do you have that number? No.
So
Pakistan is the biggest victim.
we
So
do.
the thing you are actually you are trying to relate, that is the freedom
So
movement
let's
Kashmir,
stick to
in your
Afghanistan. Let's
country.
stick to
So you are trying.
Afghanistan, Mr. Ratta. Let's stick to Afghanistan. We have a UN report. I believe you accept UN reports. The United Nations is reporting civilians have died in Afghanistan because of these strikes, because of these cross-border, attacks that are happening. So what do you have to say on that?
Actually, you are choosing the timeline of those casualties by your choice. I'm talking about last 20, 30 years, and
No,
you are
sir.
talking about last 1
So
year.
we are talking about these particular
actually,
clashes
so
in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Let me complete my point. Then you may.
Sir,
ask,
I would request you to
question.
stick to Afghanistan, Pakistan,
Exactly.
the discussion.
I'm strict to Afghanistan.
All right.
Strict to Afghanistan.
Okay.
I'm talking about that because we lost 100,000 people in this terrorism, and that was all from Afghanistan. So that is a fact, and that is accepted fact by the world. So I think I'm on Afghanistan issue. So that's why I'm quoting that. So actually, the problem is when we discuss about the terrorism, we mostly get selective about that. We want to choose those terrorist organizations. Those are not good to us. Are maybe those terrorist organizations which are not harming us. So that's why that terrorism do not end in the world. So I will request to all the regional countries, all the regional players, to sit down together and make a common policy against terrorism. Because right now, if I will see Afghanistan issue. The regime right now that is ruling Afghanistan, they are militant groups. They are not elected people by the Afghanis. So the militants always think like a militant. So terrorism must be fought with strength, intelligence, and justice. So that's what we should, as the regional players, should consider that. And the people who are responsible for the violence against innocent people should be held
Okay,
fully
Mr. Ratta, you speak. Okay, Mr. Ratta. Okay. You speak about regional players. India has been an advocate of stopping all kinds of terrorism at all global platforms, including countries like Pakistan, which continue to support proxy terror groups. And let me remind you, Mr. Ratta, you have been saying that so many people have lost their lives in Pakistan because of attacks from Afghanistan, but your political leadership supported Pakistan in 2021. Your Prime Minister, your former Prime Minister that time said, and I am quoting over here, that Afghan people have broken the shackles of slavery when Taliban took over. So I guess you need to understand that it was Pakistan who was happy that Taliban came to power in 2021. But let me also rope in Ms. Malika Pandey for her opinion on this. Ma'am, I want to understand. Afghanistan has always claimed historically that they do not view the Durand line as the official border. So these border clashes obviously do tend to occur, and Afghanistan has always maintained that there have been strikes and they have attacked in retaliation. I want to understand, is there a solution to this? China tried to broker a ceasefire. We are losing a lot of civilian lives. A lot of humanitarian crisis is already present in Afghanistan because of 20 years of the US being there, then the Taliban aggression. So we want to understand, is there a solution to this problem?
Good evening, Shivani. I've had the opportunity to speak after Ratta Saab in a lot of platforms. Just before this, we were on a debate. And there's one thing that I want to remind him, is that you cannot name a massacre. You cannot categorize a massacre of civilians, of children, in the name of a successful military operation. I mean, in Afghanistan, you have killed 11 children. How can you call it a military operation? How can you say that? And Pakistan, if you see, Shivani, it's become Pakistan to me today resembles a pressure cooker, which which every valve is trained today. You see POK, you see Baltistan, you see Gilgit, you see anywhere economic crisis, forex reserves are declining, they have failing economy, every time 22 IMF bailouts. When people are talking about providing electricity, teachers, they're talking about tanks and missiles. When people are talking about their rights, they're giving them handcuffs. So Shivani, this is Pakistan we are talking about, and this is the same Pakistan. I remember Imran Khan, thank you for quoting that, because in 2021, these people were breeding ground for Taliban. How can you forget that the Taliban trained in the mosque, in the border of Pakistan? You gave them the entire budget, you gave them money, you gave them shelter, you trained them, they trained under your leadership of the terrorists. So this is what we are talking about, and now a breeding ground is questioning Taliban. Why is this coming? Because of the closeness that Taliban and India share today. The trade that is happening between both the countries. Pakistan cannot swallow the bitter pill. It's not being able to digest that. Sadly, it's facing pressure from everywhere, and now Ratta Saab does not even believe in any UN report. So, Shivani, it's sad how this massacre is named as a successful military operation in Pakistan. Last year, in September 2025, Pakistan Air Force killed 30 civilians in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, their own civilians. Today, they are doing the same thing. Today, more than 57 people have died. And unarmed civilians have died in POK protest. So, Shivani, again and again, the same thing. They keep targeting civilians, they keep targeting unarmed people. It's the same habit that Pakistan, we get to go over again, and it keeps on spiraling. So no matter China brokers it, no matter anybody brokers it.
So what's the solution?
This is...
What's the solution as per your observation?
There's absolutely no solution to this, Shivani. Pakistan's economy is failing. Their PM calls it a democracy, but the military is apparently more in power there. They can't do anything about it. Afghanistan needs to fight it out with them. That's the only solution, and India needs to come out of the shell and needs to support Afghanistan. At the international stage, we are already doing it, but India needs to stand up now.
Okay. Ambassador Mukherjee, if I can also get in a last word from you regarding this. I mean, there is this narrative that Mr. Ratta is saying that, these are military strikes against militants who killed so many of our Pakistani, citizens. Do you believe that that is something, when we are getting a UN report, and time and again, over the past few months, whenever these border clashes happen, it's not just from the Afghanistan Taliban government, but we do get independent third-party reports stating that civilians are dying, children are dying.
Well, Mr. Ratta is a Pakistani. He lives in Pakistan, so he gives the Pakistani narrative. I have heard it so many times as a diplomat. It doesn't bother me at all. It's a narrative that does not take into account the reality on the ground, which is that Pakistan is in the middle of a civil war on one hand, and the civil war means that its military shoots its own civilians, its own people on one hand, and on the other hand, the serpent that they had nurtured with milk and food as strategic space against India, that serpent has turned around, as snakes always do, and has started biting the Pakistanis. Now, what is very interesting is that there is a new security paradigm and equation between India and Afghanistan, which the Pakistani rulers never thought could ever happen. And because of that, as Malika rightly pointed out, there is a new relationship developing by which India has directly taken on what is happening in Afghanistan, has brought it out in the UN, etc. And as a result of that, it has influenced the Western perspective, because the West is fully aware of what is happening and what is the difference between civilian killings amounting to genocide and army-to-army battles. For the same reason, the Pakistanis never accepted what happened in Pahalgam, and the Pakistanis thought that singling out and killing men because of their religion in front of their wives and daughters is civilized behavior coming from Pakistani trained terrorists. So I don't blame any Pakistani for giving this narrative because it's their narrative. But we don't accept that narrative. The UN doesn't accept that narrative. And when Mr. Rati talks about regional powers, India is not a regional power. India is an emerging global power. There is no equation between Pakistan and India today. Therefore, I would call Pakistan a sub-regional power trapped in its own neighborhood because of its own internal contradictions and fault lines. And I would refer to India as an emerging global power which has to, as Malika pointed out, do something so that its neighborhood too can be safe, can be secure, and can be developed. And Pakistan needs to understand we don't have any hatred towards Pakistan. Pakistan has huge amount of hatred towards them. They need to get that out of their system because until they do that, there can never be a cooling down and there can never be a civilized relationship between our two countries.
Absolutely. General Dwivedi, last few words on this before we round up this discussion. I want to understand, do you believe that military solution is the only way forward? And I also want to get your perspective if that's something that's possible with Pakistan having Air Force, the Taliban being a guerrilla trained, hardened, group that has come into power over there, and also the fact that can India play a role over here?
Firstly, Shivani, political problems have no military solutions. That's what the history always vindicates. So if Pakistan is trying to solve this problem militarily, it's not going to solve it. The second point is Pakistan has to change its DNA. The DNA is, they say, a state which sponsors terrorism, which uses terrorism as a state policy. It uses terrorism to pursue its national interest. As long as doing that, nothing is going to change. The third very important point is that Pakistan must understand it is being governed by the army, and Mr. Datta has to speak what he is speaking, because if he doesn't speak that, then he'll be hauled up after the show is over, because it's the Pakistan army which is totally carrying or totally running Pakistan. And the fourth point is, well, he is advocated that let's regional countries come together. India has been voicing that at the global forum, that terrorism must be defined, it must be fought as a global menace, but at the same time Pakistan can't be blowing the horn from both the ends. And my last point is, India has a major role to play, because first and foremost we have suffered from terrorism. Until American got hit in 2001, they realized the definition of terrorism, and India is doing, I think, an enormous amount. Firstly, we are fighting terrorism, we are raising the terrorism at the global level, we are also helping out Afghanistan, not only on the humanitarian aid, but in the development of Afghanistan, so that the civilian per se also benefited. My last point is, while we don't support all the policies of Afghanistan, but yet on the humanitarian ground, we always have come up and ensure that the civilians don't suffer there because of the policies otherwise. And my last word is, Musharraf had said, these terrorists were our heroes. Now today they have turned the gun on the other side. As far as Imran said, that we have been used as a gun by everyone. So the point is, I think there's a lot of self-reflecting which Pakistan has to do, is people have to do, because the world as such don't buy the narrative what Pakistan is trying to play out. Shivani.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, General Dwivedi, Ambassador Mukherjee, Malika Pandey, and Mr. Ratta for joining us on this valuable discussion. With that, viewers, we are slipping into a short commercial.